I thought that was the end of my career. I thought I'd ended everyone's career that night. When you do a first album like that, you're sort of totally caught up. You can't even believe you're actually getting away with it. I knew the old grey whistle test didn't go in the air until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, so we can do it again. Of course we couldn't do it again. The first thing that comes into my head is she's going to burn the fucking house down, and safety is the forefront of my mind.
So what did you think of punk music at that time?
I fucking hated it. I'm imagining them going back into the office the next day saying we better fucking pull the plug on this crap.
Welcome. Today I'm talking again with Michael McNeil, the former keyboard player and composer from the band Simple Minds. We talk about their 1979 debut album, Life in a Day. You better buckle up for this one.
So that was it really. That was us. Let's get packed up and let's get to London and get on with it.
So Mick, before the band asked you to join, I mean, you were the only keyboard player in the area, I think. You were a bit at a crossroads, weren't you, when it came to your musical career?
Yeah, well, I was kind of finishing off the tail end of the sort of cabaret band that I was in with my brother and a few other folks over the years. I mean, I've been in bands since high school, as I've told you already, Robin. I was scunnered with it. I had enough of it. I was kind of wanting it. And this Chinese restaurant was going to be the last one. It was in the middle of bloody nowhere, away down the air road, halfway towards Kilmarnock. I don't know what I would have done. I mean, there were other avenues, obviously, that I was interested in. I was interested in stupid stuff. I was interested in snooker. And when the snooker kicked in the 70s, I did envy sticking into my snooker. Because I've seen all these guys making an absolute fortune of it, and I've not played snooker for years. I'm probably totally rubbish at it. But that, and I was also interested in, even though I always say working in the factory was bad, I did like engineering, and I did like techie drawing. I like kind of drawing kind of architectural things, and I did have other interests completely outside of music altogether that I'm sure had I stuck in with the same amount of effort and input, I would have come up with something. Right for the outset, Rob, when I was a wee boy, and whole music thing was never my target. It was never, even when I did get kind of coerced into it, and I felt obliged to continue because of the investments my mum made, and she couldn't afford it, and hiring instruments because we couldn't afford to buy them, and the whole guilt trip I had about stopping the lessons because she'd put all that stuff in. There was a whole world of, do I even want to do this at all?
So when was it when you actually joined the band?
I did a little bit of research, and it's really taken mainly from the late Jane Henderson's diary. I don't know if you saw any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, she's got me down. When I arrived, the first gig was the 11th gig for Simple Minds, and it was the 20th of April. And, well, that must have been 78, was it?
Well, you weren't at the first gig then?
No, I wasn't. I didn't do that one. As I say, I was at the 11th gig. They must have had a bunch of gigs before that.
So that was at the Doon Castle, but you then went on to play at the Mars Bar a lot, didn't you?
Yeah, but the Mars Bar, I mean, there was quite a lot of Mars Bars. Ultimately, we did a little residency there, and that was pretty cool, and just turning up there and getting dressed in the van in the lane. And, you know, the whole thing was really quite magical. and the mystery behind it, and the intro tapes, and the lights, and the mood, and it was just a really kind of a moment in time that was like, this is a real event here, and it was only a wee gig in a pub in Glasgow. And the first songs, it was the first introduction to doing Act of Love and Doobie Doo. Doobie Doo. Doobie Doo, Doobie Doo. It was like, really, that's the nearest thing I can remember. It was like quite a catchy wee kind of thing if you think about them lyrically. I think that's probably the most catchy of the lyrics, really, that I'd kind of heard. I think it's Scooby Doo.
Well, for pub gigs, they sort of caused quite a stir, didn't they?
And well, I think the fact that we had Jane and David doing the lights and sound, which a lot of bands at the time never really went that far. You know, especially if they were unsigned acts with very little money. And again, by the time I'd come out of this kind of cabaret band, and we had quite a lot of gear. My brother Donnie was always into buying loads of gear, and I worked in a kind of a welding factory. And I got one of the guys to weld me up. It was like a goalpost thing where we could hang lights off. It was absolute solid steel. It weighed a ton. This thing would take your toes off if you dropped it on your foot. You know, it was like... And I'm away at the factory with all this kit. I used to get them weld aeroplane seats into your van and all that. So we had kind of stuff, and when I joined, I brought stuff as well as my synthesizer. I did bring lights and a lot of other kind of gear, a kind of lighting switchboard and stuff like that. So, I mean, it kind of lend itself to let's use all this gear and make a production out of it.
How did you go from pub gigs to getting an album deal?
Well, then we obviously demoed. We made a demo of what we thought was a good tracks that was going to get punted to the record labels. And I think Jim and David did some punting. We got Bruce on board. He was floating about Glasgow scenes, and Bruce was a really kind of key figure in those early days about all the general music scene around the central belt of Scotland. So that kind of got us also tied up nicely with the regular music people. So the whole thing just really started to catch fire, and the wind just blew it higher, as the Gabriel man would say. Statuette, dancery, I know what we could find.
So were Simple Minds sort of one of the only bands around doing it at that time in Glasgow, or were there other bands?
No, there was a few other bands. I mean, Derek was in his Subhuman band, and there was the punk thing had obviously kicked in the year before. So there was definitely an air of people looking for new acts. It wasn't a case of going into these pubs in Glasgow anymore and expecting to see some band doing covers of the Eagles or something, you know, or, you know, Leonard Cohen or something like that. You know, it was all kind of, we're looking for new material with a kind of new voice and a new attitude that was tying in with this kind of new wave punk scene that had kind of been floating through the country.
Yeah, because your upbringing was quite traditional, wasn't it? And you had played your accordion, and there was this whole new scene going on. So what did you think of punk music at that time?
I fucking hated it. And I think it pushed me into finding melody lines, right? So, because there's no point, we'd already had two guitarists, there's no point in me going in and doubling up what they're all doing. It's three people covering the same thing. So it definitely lended a suggestion for me to look for a melody, look for a tune, and try and make a tune fit over these chords. And I often think about that, like, when we first got the first instrument, the first keyboards that I actually bought to make that record, and the first two tunes that came out of them, because it was a SS30, a Yamaha SS30 string machine. The first thing that actually came was Life in a Day with that dun, 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 dun. I just imagined what would a strings play, and then the other one was another track called Special View that was, I think it was in a B-side or something like that. So straight away I'm thinking this is a melodic kind of, as well as a riff, it's a melody, and it also lent to the fact that on top of that you could play a tune, do, 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 and all I'm doing is following the major chords of the do, 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 do. So it was a case of that was the kind of first time that I'm thinking that this is a really creative tool. And then obviously I think as a result of those things, Jim just copied the melody line for Life in a Day, dee, 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 Life in a Day, over what the synth did. And I would have felt, and I still do feel, that if I feel that I can't contribute something, I'd rather not be there at all, unless I'm actually what my contribution's making a difference. I've got a kind of funny metaphor that I was thinking about quite recently, when my neighbour brings me round some beetroot quite often, and I love beetroot, right? And every time I add it to one of my dinners, it just makes the dinner taste better. And it's obvious, it changes the colour of everything to this pink colour. But everything just tastes better. I've no mixed this beetroot in with anything that hasn't made it taste better. And that's what I feel I want me to be. Unless I'm making that sort of difference to it, and it's for the better, I'd rather not be in the mix at all. And it doesn't even have to be music. In a lot of ways, early days when we were doing writing and making demos and stuff like that, I was quite hands-on with the tech element of it and getting things recorded and editing 4-track stuff and messing about with effects. So if I wasn't playing, I was still required to be there, and I still felt that I was needed. If ever I felt that was no longer a requirement, I would have to walk away from that.
Which is exactly what you did do.
It's exactly what I did do, yeah.
So you had Jane and you had David and you had Bruce and the band. You were all really a tight team, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all felt that we were in that same boat. This could all end tomorrow. Be grateful for what we've got. There was a kind of air of, this is amazing, it's all moving forward. Even though, I mean, at the time, I felt it went really fast, but I think it probably didn't. I mean, we still did loads of gigs and we still slogged up and down the country in a crappy van, and I mean, there was a lot of hard work in there. But when you look back at it, it just felt like it was always a progression. There was always a moving forward and getting closer and closer up until we signed a record contract. The target is to get signed up and get an album deal. As it so happened, we got a 3-album deal, which was pretty, I mean, that would be impossible. That would be totally rare just now. So it gave us a kind of a good solid, we've got a chance here to get it. But obviously we're only thinking about the album we're about to make, even though we've got a 3-album deal. You can still think, regardless of having a 3-album deal, they've got the option to pull the plug if this album's crap. So you know that you've got to do your best to enable the second album contract to kick in. So once we got the deal and we got all happening for that, we thought we had enough material, but it was always quite clear that we're still looking for new, fresh material, of which that's when kind of Life in a Day, the track, came about, and a couple of other bits and bobs that are in there. So that was it, really. That was us. Let's get packed up and let's get to London and get on with it. So, I mean, going to London was a big move. We got two flats hired in Victoria. And even that was surreal, because ultimately the format of making the record, which was the same for all the 3 records with John, it was get everybody in, get through the songs as much as possible, do a couple of takes of it, but you're focusing on bass and drums, then you're going to go and get keys and guitar overdubs, and then you're going to finish off with vocals and mixing. And that was the kind of format. So after we'd done these backing tracks up at Chalfont and with the mobile unit, but Charlie and I were going down to Abbey Road and the Tube every day. And that was really weird. So you're going in there, getting in, maybe try to get into the studio early afternoon and just getting on the Tube, getting off at, I don't know, what's the nearest place, Maida Vale or something like that.
St John's Wood, I think.
St John's Wood, that's right. So we're just getting on from Victoria to St John's Wood and walking up to Abbey Road every afternoon. It was just weird. Plus we're taking a wee smoke here and there. The idea of just being a wee bit stoned again on the Tube, I'm just going to make an album in Abbey Road. It was kind of weird.
You all seemed to sort of love your smoking at that time.
Yeah. But I'd kind of get into hash before I joined the band a wee bit, and the odd wee LSD trip here and there. So we started experimenting quite early with that. But on the way down, I'll never forget on the way down to the plane when some of this story is quite vague because I can't even remember. I know I got picked up in the van with a band really early in the morning at my mum's house. I was staying with my mum at the time, and we either drove to the airport. And how did we dump the van? There's a whole load of Columbo questions that don't fit. But I do remember we've had a few joints that early in the morning. And so even by the time we got on the plane, we'd eaten lumps of hash. So by the time we're getting off the plane, we're totally, even before we went on it, we were flying basically. But by the time we get off the plane, and we're waiting for the luggage, Arista had a limo to come and pick us up, this girl, Julie Hooker, who I kind of fancied at the time. And I was so embarrassed about my luggage because my mum had just packed my bag for me, and it was a wee flowery hold-all thing that she used to use for shopping. And I was reluctant to go and take it off the conveyor belt. I was denying it was mine. She's like, Mick, isn't that your bag? Wait, have you not got your bag yet? And it's the only wee flowery bag that's going to run the carousel. Ultimately having to go and pick up this embarrassing bag to get in a limousine and then drive up to the studio where we're actually going to start the backing tracks.
And you're all stoned as well at this point.
Totally stoned. Well, we weren't all stoned because Brian and Derek, they never really did. It was really just Jim, Charlie and myself that were kind of indulging in the smoke. And we just all fell asleep. You know, it was like the middle of the afternoon, and I woke up in the evening. I think I've kind of told this before, but when I woke up, nobody else is up yet. And I was still kind of in a dream kind of scenario. And I knew that John Leckie was in the studio already setting up. And I was really nervous to meet him. I'd never met the guy before. And I kind of sneaked over and looked in, and I could see him kind of setting up mics on the drum kit and just working away. And I just ran back to the house again because we were in a kind of mobile scenario. And I'm waiting for either Derek or Charlie to get up so we can then go. And I was frightened this guy was going to kind of ask me to play something on my own, and I was going to get found out, you know, that kind of scenario. He's going to say, what are you doing here? You're rubbish. I better go and get a proper keyboard player for this job. But it was kind of a testament to where I was, I felt at that time. Bear in mind that I've come out of the 70s, and the biggest records that I'd actually played or worked with would be bands like Chicory Tip or Chirpy Chirpy Cheep Cheep. You know, those were songs that I was doing. Do you know those songs? You know, Chicory Tip. And in fact, the same key, I remember that because that was one of the first tunes that I learned when I got the synthesizer. And in fact, I don't know, let me just get a plug in. Now, this is just a sawtooth sound. It's like, right. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that was the kind of noise I was getting. And I can even remember the solo, and I bet this is the key that it's in. It was sort of... Right. Well, John Leckie would have probably threw me at the studio for that. So that's really where my head was at. And in a way, it was kind of what Arista wanted, I felt. They were looking for a commercial, they were looking for another Scottish Bay City Rollers. That they would have been happy with that element of it, that sort of life in a day kind of come Chelsea Girl, come that upfront melodic kind of in your face bold pop, you know what I mean, all these words that were completely against what Simple Minds were supposed to be heading to be.
Okay, let's crack on with the big one, Chelsea Girl, which is, I mean, that's within the whole career of Simple Minds, even now, that's a big song.
Yeah. The Chelsea Girl kind of vision was going to be that, as far as everybody was concerned, this was going to be the big hit, you know, this was going to be the one. And that guitar, dun dun, was going to be huge. And I even remember that was done in Abbey Road as an overdub. We would have done it all at Chalfont and the backing tracks, but we were going to go in and do that. And I remember Charlie putting his wee Carisbro in the middle of that big massive studio in Abbey Road, and up in the control room he's obviously feeding the signal into that and miking it up for different distances so as you get the biggest guitar sound we could get, and then tracking it up again and double tracking. Double tracking was a thing that was like, oh, we need to do it. We need to double track everything.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of key moment as to how are we making a hit record here? Are we going to make a hit basically? And at the same time, remember I was saying how Charlie and I would go down there in the afternoon and a wee couple of joints in the flat before we left, and kind of on the tube in the underground, a wee bit stoned, looking at people when you're going to Abbey Road and they don't know where we're going, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this thing in your other people's lives mean nothing in comparison to what you're about to embark on. We're about to go where the Beatles done and make this hit record. You know, there's this whole mental thing going on in my head anyway. And when we get there, and by the time we've got a few in, and I'm just going to, a couple of memories here that I've got of that time in Abbey Road is we'd get in the afternoon, maybe put something like Chelsea Girl down, feeling quite good. It sounds really massive. Jim and other folks would start coming in later on in the day. He'd obviously been away working on the lyrics or whatever like that. And at one occasion, we're quite far down the line with these overdubs. So the album's starting to take shape and the record company want to come and hear it. Now, I never really get any heads up about when somebody's coming in or not coming in, which is a bit of a shame, really. You want to get a pre-warning. So by this point, we're probably after dinner. We're into the evening, and we're in the main big studio that's looking down on that huge thing in Charlie's wee amp, and we've done the guitar. So it's like John turns to me. Now we've got the keyboard, or some of the keyboard things set up in the control room. Again, another thing that I wasn't crazy about, because you're sort of in front of everybody. The spotlight's really on you and you're in the room with them.
It's horrible.
It is horrible. I mean, given that, if you're at the other side of the screen and you've got headphones on, there's a horrible element there as well. Because after you do the take, there's like a committee judging on, is that the one? I don't know, shall we get him to do it again? The microphone goes to mute, so you hear nothing. You just look through the glass window and you can see everybody talking, and you're wondering, did they like that? Did they not like that? And then John will come back on, maybe you could try that one more time.
Always feels good.
You don't like that then? That was no good. And then you do the exact same thing again, and it all goes quiet and you see the debate carrying on again. So that's not a good place to be, because you're also wondering, I've just done the same thing, so they're going to think the same. Why would they think any different? Am I supposed to be doing something different? No, these are all elements of where a really good producer kind of comes into force and can make that situation work. But the situation now I find myself in, I'm in the control room in Abbey Road, and it's John turns to me, and there's a whole load of people sitting couches behind from the record company and the management and other band members, and there's like, I don't know, maybe 8 people sat there. And I'm in the front, I'm in the firing line now, and I'm pretty stoned, and I'm thinking, shit. And John's like, right, let's get the keyboards done. That's not a good place to be either.
Why did you always think you'd be better off stoned?
Well, I didn't, and I wouldn't have been stoned had I got a heads up that there was the rooms going to be full of bloody record company executives.
But it seems like from your stories, when the shit hits the fan and you think, right, you reach for the hash.
No, I know. Well, that's a lesson that I thought you'd have learned early doors, because MD who smokes dope will know you can that can go wrong really quickly, and you know how out of control things can get and how your reactions could be. The whole point about getting stoned initially was to kind of spark up some creativity and bring your head outside the box, as it were. But there are certain situations where your heads really should be inside the box.
So how did it go then?
No, it didn't go good. My recollection. Nobody was that impressed, you know. And John was just getting on with the job, he was getting the record, making progress. All these people were wanting to sit in here, like the hit record, obviously, and go back to their superiors and relay on everything's under control. I'm imagining them going back into the office the next day saying, we better fucking pull the plug on this crap.
So what about the others? Did the others have to do that? Like did Jim have to do that?
Yeah. Well, there would definitely been times when Jim definitely had to do that, because by that point we're way down the line with the records, and they really want to hear what's happening. They knew at that point where they'd be wanting kind of rough mixes, and they'd be wanting to hear stuff so they can go to their marketing and their art department. And by that point they're sending all sorts of people in there to try and get on board with the product. So that was just a wee taster. Jim got the brunt of that most of the time, because by that point the record was kind of well on.
Because he wasn't the most confident man at that point, was he?
No, I know, no, and he would come in with that kind of look of, the eyes, the head's down a wee bit, but the eyes are kind of scanning the room, like looking for facial reactions and kind of things like that, but still trying to look like he's looking for a reaction.
Yeah. I bet Derek was sort of in his element in that situation.
Derek would have just got the bass on and started grooving it with it. But again, we didn't really do any bass overdubs at that point in the control room.
The drums and bass would have been done first, wouldn't they? Yeah,
because even though Charlie's amp was done in the thing, he was in the control room. Him and I could work from there and just DI straight in. And that was another thing, DI. It was like, that was the two letters from hell, because that meant you were getting the exact sound at the keyboard without any effects and without anything that we were trying to disguise or playing and performance with. So a lot of this stuff for me particularly was kind of based on an ethereal feel about the whole thing, which I'm firing a bunch of reverb and an echo delay and trying to disguise the sound as much as possible. John was saying, no, we're just going to DI it and then we can add that stuff later. And it's the same as a vocalist when you go in and there's no echo or reverb on the microphone. You think, this sounds awful. And you've got all these people listening to this awful sounding harpsichord. It's not even a harpsichord, it's a bloody Farfisa organ. And it sounds like something out the 60s from the Doors. Now, at that time, that would be a kind of cool sound. No, but technology was moving on with the synths and the string machines and the whole thing, making all these much, much better sounds that I'm still got this old Farfisa that's got this Doors 70s, 60s sound, and I'm quite embarrassed by it. That's why I've been adding flangers and phasers and echo effects to try and hide it. And it all builds up in this insecure young guy who's kind of maybe using drugs in a way to kind of ignore reality.
But it's that lack of confidence that makes the creative juices flow, I think.
Oh, definitely.
A lot of the time.
Absolutely. It does. It pushes you further and it gives you that kind of, where does this... People often ask, where does it come from? Where did you write that song? How did you write that melody? And again, if I'm in a situation on my own and I'm sitting here where I am just now, I can sit down and I can try and be creative, and some things come, some things don't. And sometimes you think, I really like that, and you'll just go down based on purely my own perception of it, whether I like it or not. So I've not presented it to anyone. But if you're in the situation with a bunch of other guys, and you've got to come up with something on the spur of the moment in front of an audience. Now, that audience may be very small. It may just be half a dozen record company executives sitting in the room at Abbey Road, which is quite intimidating. You've got a 20-year-old, 19, whatever age I was at the time, thinking that he shouldn't even be there in the first place. And all these people from a major record company all looking at you live in real time. You know, even though, having said that, I didn't actually play anything for the first time in front of that scenario, but I've been in that position. I've got to say, it's really quite nerve-wracking. It's a kind of do or die. You feel like you're just going to expose yourself. You know, you're going to pull down your trousers and expose yourself to these people, and they maybe all start laughing. And if I did pull down my trousers, I'm sure they'd have started laughing.
All the lassies say hello, double where's your trousers?
Yeah, I remember you saying you even get nervous at the care home when you play there, don't you?
Yeah, no, I still go up there. In fact, last Sunday was actually really good. I did a version of an Elvis Presley tune. I'd heard Elvis on the radio recently. In fact, Elvis... We had an open mic night up in Barra last week, and I told an Elvis story of when Elvis died, because I remember exactly where I was when Elvis died. I was with a prostitute, right? And at the time I didn't know.
I didn't see that coming.
In my defence, I didn't know she was a prostitute until the night started to unfold, and I realised the gravity of the situation I found myself. And Elvis was in the radio constantly, and this is what got me thinking. And I was wondering, why is Elvis playing and I'm lying in this shithole with this beautiful looking prostitute? And it was in the Ghetto was playing on the Ghetto, and I'm thinking, I'm in the Ghetto right now. This is the Ghetto, and this prostitute is really not going to let me out of here. and I'm struggling, you know, I'm struggling sexually. And she's like cool as you like, walking about bollock, and I'm looking at her. I can see all her parts, and there's a single light coming off the ceiling that's blindingly 150 watt light bulb. It's a total passion killer. And I'm lying on a mattress on the floor, and she's over the top of me, leaning up, or reaching up to put a chiffon scarf around the light bulb to bring some romance back into the room, right? And I'm looking straight up at her vagina, looking down at me. And bear in mind, I've never really seen a vagina in my life, really, at that point, because I was claiming that I wasn't a virgin, but I'd actually had a 1 minute and 20 seconds worth of pleasure some year before. But that was in a dark room, and I didn't really see what was going on. And when I'm looking up, and she's up there fully exposed in front of me, and I'm lying below, and she's trying to put this thing around the light bulb, the first thing that comes into my head is she's going to burn the fucking house down. Because I'm at the moment, I'm an apprentice maintenance engineer, and safety is the forefront of my mind. Anyway, what was the real dampener, or the fucking passion killer, was the fact the radio guy comes on and says, "Oh, Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis Presley is found dead in his home, and you know, the king of rock and roll is dead." And I'm lying there looking at this vagina thinking, fucking poor Elvis.
Around that time, you did your first debut TV appearance on the Old Grey Whistle Test, didn't you? Now, do you remember the ending of that?
Yeah, I do remember the ending. I thought that was the end of my career. I thought I'd ended everyone's career that night.
I can't imagine what you must have felt like.
Yeah. It was a right wobbly kind of. That's one of the mistakes that I was talking about earlier that you can't really deny. That's not a creative, artistic mistake. That was just a balls up at the ending.
It wasn't jazz, but it was. But I really felt because that was the first time you were on television, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the first major thing. I mean, the Belgrade Whistle Test was a massive show for any band in that era. But again, for me, it was still. I never really watched the show, you know. I was more of I would have watched the occasional Top of the Pops, but even the whole thing wasn't really my thing. But I knew it was very, very important. And I assumed we were going to be able to do it again. I remember Jim looking at me thinking, what the fuck have you done there? And I'm thinking, don't worry, they were not actually going out live because this was like in the afternoon or something. I can't remember the exact time, but I knew the Old Grey Whistle Test didn't go in the air until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So we can do it again. Of course, we couldn't do it again. But when that started to dawn on me that no, that was it. No, I can't. I'm trying to think, how bad was it? You know, can I see it? Can I hear it? How bad was that mistake? It was obviously they noticed
it. Wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't really, but it was bad enough for Jimmy to notice it and for Charlie and everybody to kind of look at me. And even that moment afterwards when nobody really says anything, no, that silence is deafening. No, you fucked up. If they'd come and say, oh, you fucked that one up, McNeil, that would have been better than kind of leaving it with a big awkward silences.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, but still, I'm still there, and I'm still not got the overalls back on, and I'm not on the shop floor. I'm in London, you know. So
well, you should have just ended it like that forever. So
yeah, that would have been the good get out for that. Just to go back and learn how to make that ending. But that was a real good one because it's a big first time debut on television, and you know. And anyway, you don't learn anything without making mistakes. That's for sure.
So what's your favourite song on the album?
Oh God, I don't know. Probably Pleasantly Disturbed or something. I mean, that was the one I would have played to people if I said, oh, I've got a new album out here, check this out. I'd have probably put Pleasantly Disturbed on.
And was Pleasantly Disturbed, was that one that Jim and Charlie had written themselves, and was that already in?
Yeah, no, that was pretty well developed, I would say, because I remember it when they played the Johnny and the Selfie Abusers gig. That was the one that stuck out for me. Though I would say at the ending when we got the cellos and we did all the stuff, they all really kind of took from the bass parts that developed it. That was a little bit of a disappointment when we'd all agreed that we were going to elaborate on Pleasantly and make it quite orchestral at the end and get an orchestra and cellos and all that. I was dead excited about it, and I remember going down for that recording session. But the disappointment was that they just took I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad bass line or the parts were wrong, but there was no room for making. So I wanted to hear it first, and then if I had any suggestions, be able to air those suggestions. But I couldn't because it was obviously a paid session, and all these cello players were on the clock, and their parts worked to it, and it was all notated out properly with a string arranger. So there was no room to do anything or even comment on the actual part or the sound or anything. It was just a case of get this thing done and get these people out of here because we run out of money at 3 o'clock and we're not going to pay a double session fee. That was a bit of an eye-opener for me, that the fact is, well, if we're ever going to get string arrangements done in the future, don't expect to go start editing and changing them when the thing's in record.
So who was the guy that did the string arrangements?
I can't remember the guy's name. It was somebody that John got, some string arranger who notated it all out. But he basically just took the bass line and took some variations, because Derek had a kind of run at the bass, do 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 do. He had some bass stuff, and all the cellos really did was replicate that, which was all nice. It kind of did thicken it all up a wee bit, and it did give it that air of a more classical kind of taken it away slightly from a kind of punky band that song actually came out of. You know, it's supposed to be this dreary commit suicide and the violin, you know, and it was like, actually getting somebody to do the violin would have been a good idea.
Did Charlie do the violin then?
Yeah, Charlie did all the violin and saxophones. I mean, I'm going to take that back, because having a young guy searching about musically in a field that he's totally, clearly unqualified in, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's good. That's all about kind of breaking new boundaries and all that. So I'm going to take it back that I wish they've got someone else to do the violin.
So after you'd recorded the album, it's a famous story that Jim listened to Joy Division and thought, oh, this is all terrible, we don't know what we're doing, we've got to change direction. So what was your feeling about all that?
I don't even like Joy Division, and I didn't like them then. You know, I remember going to see Joy Division in San Francisco, and it was the drum machine pumping out this thing, and this guy shouts out "smoking drum machine," which I thought was brilliant, because the best thing in the thing was the drum machine. Anyway, I wasn't that bothered about trying to be that, because I didn't really like that anyway. You know, I'm just thinking, I'm at heart, I'm an Elton John bloody ABBA closet guy. I'm in the closet with Elton John. I loved all that stuff. David Cassidy had a couple of great songs. You know, I'm coming out of the 70s. I still think the 70s is the best era for music. When I look at my playlists on Spotify, it's all 70s stuff. You know, Gordon Lightfoot is totally amazing. And all the string arrangements and the song arrangements. I'm in this mode. Joy Division are nowhere near in my radar, and neither are Roxy Music for that matter, or any of their pop stuff, Virginia Plain and you know, all that kind of off-note singing to be off-note for off-note's sake. It's like, it's just funny, you know. I don't want to be that. That's no my target.
So did the others in the band actually like it, or was it sort of a front? You know?
No, I think they probably did. They obviously had they've invested more time in listening to it and checking out who the producers were and who the musicians in those bands were. They were clearly into it. I couldn't have told you any of that. You know what I mean? So it wasn't something that I was spending too much time investigating or even being inspired by. The spinning offshoots of it, when we're in the car, in the van, or in the bus or something, and they're playing this music, and you're thinking, well, that's what they like. You know, you're going to try and emulate in some format or my interpretation of it anyway. But again, because it wasn't such a difficult thing to actually do, it made it quite easy. It made my palette quite easy to kind of explore, you know, because it wasn't that difficult to replicate any of that stuff. Or do you frightened to kind of burst the whole image of the band? And nobody's been very clear about what that is. They're not being really, it's not been saying, like, obviously when we're doing a video budget or something, you're all hitting the King's Road looking for shops to buy stuff. And again, that was another nightmare for me as well. All showing up like, what did you buy? What did you buy? You know, really, I just bought a lump of hash and a carry it.
So what did you think of the album when it was finished? Were you happy with it?
I was kind of chuffed at the fact they'd even made a record at all. I was still, for a long time, even up when we started doing the tour to promote it, obviously the reviews kind of mean a lot. We're looking for reviews. It did really well. It charted well. It did really well, better than I think any of us expected to get to number 30. And we were on tour with Magazine, obviously, and I don't think their album. So, and we were were really pulling it live. We were doing really good. We had a great attitude. The band came across more as a band with a vibe and an attitude than it did with a fantastic debut album. You know, it was the fact that where we were, which was really nowhere as far as radio plays and goes, the fact that we knew the live gig was pretty happening kind of covered it all for me anyway. I wasn't that bothered about what the reviews of the record were. You're looking for things in the review that are going to say, you know, you hope it's going to say, oh, the keyboards were great, or that's a really good bit, or that's a, you know, this is great, and that's great. But obviously there wasn't really any focus on any of that. So I wasn't that bothered up nor down about the in-depth feel of the record, or even that much thinking about the next record at that point.
So the official line from Charlie and Jim is that they wrote this album, complete album, on a guitar around their kitchen table. You guys came in, they recorded it, and the publishing then went to Jim and Charlie because they wrote the whole album. You've got a few things to say about that, haven't you?
They still rabbiting on about writing everything in life in a day, and I still want to really make it clear that the worst thing that they ever did right from the outset, in my view, was going through secretly with Jane, Jim's girlfriend at the time, and re-signing all the publishing to themselves without telling them to. That was a really shitty low blow that I can't get over or forgive Andy for.
And you didn't know about that at the time?
No, we didn't know till it was way after the fact, maybe even up to when the credits were getting done in the record, when they knew we were actually going to read it, where I can't even remember how sleekly, slimy way they went about telling us. That was really a worst kind of thing MD could have done, particularly that early on in a band when you think you're all in this together. And suddenly, well, no, you're no. And we'd already signed a contract saying that we were all getting 1/5, 20% each. Suddenly to get that all kind of ripped up and to be confronted with this new arrangement.
Was it just for Life in a Day?
Yeah, but it was on record as Just for Life in a Day, but off the record it was supposed to have changed for Really Real and Empires and Dance, but Jim still did continue to take separate royalties for those that all got changed later in Charlie's favour and against the favour of both Brian and Derek. Mine's has remained kind of stable.
It seems to me that by saying that they wrote the whole album suggests that was their band from the very start.
Totally, absolutely, exactly. That's exactly what it was about. Just putting their claim in the ground and digging it in. I mean, I know for a fact, for example, the track Life in a Day could never have existed really, because that is all came out of that string machine that was a Yamaha SS30, I think it was called. You know, plus the other stuff that I got from Rod Argent's shop, the Rhodes, those, it was the inspiration from those instruments that started that off. So, for example, that would be one example, and also like that was the same with Special View, because that had the same string sound on it. It's funny, Special View, I've never really heard that again.
I love Special View. It's funny when you look at it online with the credits, it's Kurt and Birchall again, but you're saying that it was written primarily on your new gear.
Yeah, no, I know. Obviously there was all the songs that did exist beforehand, you know, but it was mainly just how the contribution of like the keyboard, for example, to Chelsea Girl, it really changed the song and really made it really commercial, I felt. And then, you know, and just to hear stuff recently with Charlie still claiming that he did all that, it was just it kind of just hurts. It's a wee bit like being totally disregarded. question that I was always getting asked for years is, are you ever going to get back on stage? Are you ever going to do a gig again or play with the boys again? And I did. And in all fairness, Charlie did kind of. It wasn't an invitation as such. It was, would you ever go back in road? It's when we did the Brothers in Arms thing. I remember sitting in the wee back room working out some parts. But when he asked me that, I did think I was unclear as to whether this was an invitation or not. But anyway, it's a question that over the last 40 years I get, in fact, still today, almost at least once a week, twice a week, would you ever do this again? And one thing last year, when I was working with the local school band, I mean, we did an amazing project. It was a fantastic sort of achievement for the kids locally. We'd worked really quite hard all through the winter to lead up to this competition. It was a local Scottish school championship thing, a freestyle element, where a pipe band have got to incorporate elements of a different genres of music, try and blend things and move the whole traditional music thing forward. Anyway, we sort of won this competition. I'd made a video prior to going out in case we'd get stuck on the island, and was determined that we wouldn't get trapped here and no submit anything. So I recorded the final rehearsal and I spent a bit of time trying to get it really right. We went out to Glasgow and we won it, and it sounded brilliant, and the video turned out really, really well. So everybody's in a real high. Kids are ecstatic. It was a moment that I'll never forget because it was really, really cool. Anyway, we're back, and I thought I'm going to send it because the actual tunes in it were Biko, Themes for Great Cities. You know, it was a kind of simple mindsy thing that I'd kind of helped and suggested some chords, and my pal Duncan had put some tunes on, and you know, between three of us and the teacher, we managed to put a good package together. And I thought, it's so good on a high. These guys need to do something with this. And I sent it off to Peter Gabriel because it had the Biko thing on it. I'd actually seen Peter Gabriel a couple of weeks before, and I'd met him backstage, and I reminded him that when we actually did Biko live, I had a pipe tune on the DX7 that was really it was a weird one, and in the middle of it he turned around with a look of what the hell was that. Anyway, with that in mind,
in the middle of the show,
yeah, that's when we did. I think it was Birmingham or something. He came on stage, and he turns round, and I could see in his face, and the sound was a kind of piercing, supposed to be bagpipes, but it was a kind of weird DX7 bagpipes. So when it came at that, that's what I thought about when I thought I need to let him hear it, because bagpipes should be the main instrument that plays that melody, and it sounded great with the pipes. So when I sent it to him, and I got a really immediate reply, and it was amazing. It was really complimentary, talking about the kids and the standard of musicianship, and it was just really beautiful, I felt. And he also suggested, had there been a WOMAD festival this year, it was something they could have considered to get them on it, but I think WOMAD was paused this year. But he was going to pass it on to the WOMAD people. Anyway, I thought, oh gosh, it'd be really great to get them. And then the band, Simple Minds, were coming up to play Bellahouston Park. I thought, fuck, I'm going to just send it to Jim to see if they could do it. And as a sort of sweetener, to try and hopefully make it more appealing, I thought I'll add me into the equation where I could play Belfast Child on the accordion, possibly as an intro. It was actually Duncan who suggested this idea. Why don't you play Belfast? Because we'd done it with a pipe band before. And that could introduce them, it would put you on stage, and it would put the Themes for Great Cities with the main chord progressions through it, and then Biko. It's something that a Simple Minds crowd would really identify with. And I thought this could be really cool. But when I got this immediate reply, no, we're not interested in any of the bagpipe stuff, nah, it was just totally brushed off. But under the underlying sentiment of it all, from my point of view, was we're really in the spirit of an olive branch to kind of open up some sort of communication about possibly doing a live thing. And the Bellahouston Park in Glasgow, the kind of biggest show they've done since I left the band in Glasgow, I would think. I thought it was a good opportunity to look at that option. But it just came back with a definite, no, this door's firmly closed. So it was just with that thought that I thought, well, no, if anybody's asking the question about me getting back up, that as far as Jim was concerned, that's never going to happen.
Well, thanks so much for today, Mick. It's been so funny and informative and an absolute joy. It's been great.
No worries, Rob. No, it was a total pleasure. Loved that.
Thanks, Mick. See you soon.
All the best, man.
You over there, you over there. What you up to? You over there, you over there. What you up to? You've been standing in that.
Mick, have you heard that new version of Pablo Picasso that's out there?
Yeah, does the singer sound familiar in
Yeah.
that?
Hold up a minute, am I speaking to Drew Peacock?
This could be Drew Peacock.
Pablo Picasso, all the girls think you're an asshole. Pablo Picasso, all the girls think you're an asshole. But he's Pablo Picasso.
You over there. You over there. What you up to?
You're a fucking asshole. Fucking solo, ya cunt.
Well, thanks for everyone for listening. It's been a real joy to talk to Mick over these 3 albums, and it's quite sad sometimes for me as a fan to think about the guys not always getting on. But it's like any family. Hopefully, one day, things can change. Anyway, all the best.